The Hobbit is a much-loved and well-known story, a prequel of sorts to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. This fantasy adventure novel introduced Middle-earth to the world, but there wouldn't be much toasting the classics drama in declaring The Hobbit a classic. That much is obvious. So, we went with a slightly different format and talked about the 1974 audio version, originally on vinyl but easily available on YouTube. With Merlin himself, Nicol Williamson, reading and abridging, this version is a slightly different spin on Tolkien's original. So, imagine yourself in an Oxford pub with your Inkling friends and pour yourself some English-style bitter beer. It's time for episode 55 of Toasting the Classics, The Hobbit. Welcome to Toasting the Classics. This is a guest host episode. We got a couple of guest hosts. We got a returning champion, Chris Gragg.
Yay! Yes, hello, Chris Gragg. Welcome once again.
No, you're Chris Gragg.
Well, nobody else was cheering, Dave. So.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Well, let's assume it was all drowned out in the mass appreciation for you. Okay, and we got somebody new on the show. Who's that?
I'm new, the newbie. Please be gentle.
All right. I think we can handle that. I don't think we should put down too hard on people on this show. So this is the podcast where we take something that people call a classic and we talk about it. Then we drink something inspired by the classic and we come to a big conclusion about what? Chris, what do we come to a conclusion about?
Whether or not it's a classic, and also whether or not the drink is any good sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But the way we phrase it is we say, "Are we toasting this classic?" So we'll get to that at some point.
I guess whether or not we think it's a classic.
Right. No. It's not about whether we think. If we say it's a classic, it's canon. So I remember having that copy of this book at some point, but we're not really doing the book.
We're not. It's just
Correct.
flavor.
Obviously, we're going to be talking about the book quite a bit, but what we're doing is something that you came up with, which is a new format to Toasting the Classics. This is a new type of media that we haven't done before. So what do we go with?
We're listening to an audiobook of The Hobbit. And this is an audiobook that was recorded, I believe, in 1976, 74. Oh, wow. Thank you.
It's the same year. It's the same year my usual podcasting host, Clint, was born. And everything on the podcast seems to hover around 1974. So I was not surprised when I looked it up and saw it was 1974.
So recorded by Nicol Williamson, who was a famous stage actor who's also had some movie parts, and we'll talk about that later. Fun to do an audio podcast about an audiobook.
I don't know who this Nicol Williamson is, because the YouTube, definitely one of the clips that I listened to referred to it as Nicol Williamson.
But if you look at the actual cover of the medium, it has Nicol spelled out. So it's funny that they had it misspelled on YouTube. My parents actually had that LP, that original cover. And I would bust that out in my living room as a kid and listen to this. So this is near and dear to my heart.
And how many discs did that take?
I think it was either 4 or 6, but it's been a long time.
Okay, so you can't get that on one LP is like an hour, 70, 80 minutes most, right?
Because it was broken into 4 parts, it makes me think that they did one YouTube segment for each front and back LP.
What did you guys think? So I guess, no, let's not ask that. Why did you pick this? I mean, it's an audiobook. So what? What is this particular recording? So what? Why did we go with this?
So Nicol was a stage actor. He was notably difficult to work with. His Wikipedia page, in fact, has a sub-thread for the numerous different times he physically assaulted other actors in his plays.
Yes. He's kind of known for his temper tantrums.
Had beef with Ellen Mirren. Who
brave man
explicitly did not want to be cast opposite him in Excalibur. This is also an abridged audiobook, and he abridged it himself. He did all his own work on it.
I thought it seemed short, and I did not pick up.
4 hours did seem short. I was going to talk to you about
that. There are certain things that if you're really conversant with The Hobbit, you know things have been cut out. I can give you some examples as we go.
I did. You know what I realized had been cut out? The only time I really picked up on it is when Gollum is doing a guessing game and he guesses what he has in his pockets and he says it's hands. It says in the book that the Hobbit quickly pulled his hands out of his pockets so that it wasn't right. And that wasn't in this version. And I was
there's little stuff like that.
I was like, what happened to that? Wasn't that in the book? Did I make that up? It was gaslighting me a little bit, like the abridged version.
Kind of there's little bits like that in this.
Yeah.
Little bit here and there. Hardcore folks are I did a little research on that. It seemed to be a little bent out of shape over that, but overall, it seems to be pretty well received as being true.
And one of the other things that he really worked on was trying to make all of the voices distinct, so he didn't have to say Gandalf said after every time Gandalf says something.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be more like a stage play where
every single voice was different, except for maybe a few of the dwarves. But like you could close your eyes. By the fourth hour, I knew who was talking, without any problems.
Which is pretty impressive for one person doing it.
Very impressive. I listened to it twice, and once a few weeks ago, and then again over the last couple of days, and that really stood out as remarkable. I mean, that's you really don't think that through, but he spent the time to come through and come up with a voice for all that. Voice acting is. Yeah, like that's not like a small thing. Like to come up with all those voices, you have to, and to come back to it. He couldn't have recorded that all at once, so he had to come up with a voice and then record that probably on his own. There's a lot to it. And the technology then to record yourself was probably a bigger pain in the butt. So
it was a lot of studio time, which was expensive in '74.
I listen to audiobooks a lot, and they don't usually do that. Sometimes they'll lighten their voice a little for a female character.
Right.
Or a child or something, but otherwise they're not coming up with like a different accent. Like when Bilbo talks, it's Bilbo, and when Thorin is talking, it's Thorin, and everybody's got a very different accent. Gandalf's probably the flattest one that's closest, I think, to the narrator's natural accent.
It's very Merlin. The Gollum accent, I thought the voice for that, I thought Andy Serkis pulled some
I have that in my notes.
It.
That is something, and I think maybe even Benedict Cumberbatch listened to his Smaug because
I thought Smaug sounded different than the way Cumberbatch did it. I was thinking this.
Were there other voices you guys thought were standouts?
We
had a couple of strange characters like the Raven.
The Raven was my favorite.
That's a distinctive one.
Hands down, the Raven was my favorite. Oh my God, that truly was the best.
Bard has a little bit of a different way of talking. Just about everybody does. I think this is because I always thought it was strange. The first time I saw Fellowship of the Ring, I had trouble with why do they sound Scottish? Why do all the hobbits have these weird Scottish accents? And I think it's because they probably listened to this and they were just like, oh, this is what hobbits talk like. I don't know. So you guys popping drinks?
Yes, sir. I guess we should talk about what we have.
Toasting Classics. On Toasting Classics, we always drink something inspired by the media or purported. I've got a Boddington's and apparently it's explosive. Be careful with it.
Good for you guys. I guess I'm the one who chose the drink. I did a little research. I read that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, they like to get together to kind of read each other's work. They actually had like a little group they called the Inklings, and they'd meet at this bar called the Eagle and Child, that the nickname was, I think, the Bird and Baby. But anyway, it was a bar known for its bitters and morels. I did all this research on it and ended up totally flubbing on finding something that was actually an English style bitter, and ended up with an IPA. So kudos to both of you for finding English beers.
They are surprisingly tough to find around here.
Yeah.
My research was not extensive. I just went down to the local corner store. I mean, that's it. The liquor store doesn't sell beer. Apparently, beer is sold at different places in New York than other drinks.
So did you do any research on what a British bitter beer is?
I mean, not too much. No, did you kind of dive into that a bit yourself, or
a little bit? It's a balanced beer with the hops and the malt. Everything's supposed to be kind of even. Nothing stands out too much, and there are three different types. I think there's the ESB, or the extra special bitter, is the highest end version of it.
I thought ESB stood for English style bitter.
Same here. I should have done more research.
But the three grades are mostly dependent on the gravity and the alcohol content. Higher up on the scale is the ESB. That's the top one with the higher ABC and the higher gravity.
Mine doesn't taste like much. What do you guys? It's not bad.
Mine's an IPA, so it's going to be bitter heavy. And
that's a totally different type. But sort of what Chris is saying. This is pretty balanced. Nothing's like jumping out at me. It's not bad. it's not a bad beer. It's a good beer, but it's very British. There's not a whole lot of taste forward.
It's supposed to be just under room temperature too. You know, it's
not very cold, honestly.
Right.
Yeah, we heard it. Well, it's supposed to be, I guess the American version, I guess it would be sort of a session beer where you can just, drink it and it's not going to be overwhelming or anything.
Something is shaking in the can. There's some kind of a mechanism here.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a Guinness. They have a little bit of a cartridge in it to, you're actually supposed to pour it and then, get yourself a nice little.
I see.
Nice head to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Professor Tolkien would have approved of mine, but it was the only thing that I could find that was billed as an ESB, although on their website they actually call it an ale. And I don't know if you can see this, but it is
Rock on, you win, dude. You win.
Iron Maiden Trooper.
You win.
Which is actually apparently made with the help of one of the band members of Iron Maiden. So
because
it's based on the Charge of the Light Brigade, which
Iron Maiden, they kind of pick a some sort of work of poetry, like epic poem, like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, or they'll take some figure from history. It's
like
really
Alexander the Great.
Yes, absolutely. There's a song about him, and Charge of the Light Brigade. That's essentially, I think, the Trooper. I think is what that's all about. So
it's tasty. It's actually a little citrusy, which I was not expecting. So
all right, apparently Iron Maiden can brew some beer. Go Bruce Dickinson. I grew up a metalhead, and actually the only reason I could really sneak in, because my mom was really big no on metal stuff, I had to kind of either hide it or sell it. And Iron Maiden was easy to sell because they tied things to history, or they tied things to literature so well. And so I would I'd read like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and then I could tie it to something that was.
We should do
educational.
The next time you come on, Kevin, we should do a metal album of some kind. I know nothing about heavy metal, like at all.
Sure.
So speaking of songs, one of my least favorite things about listening to a Tolkien audiobook is that you can't skip the songs.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
I was when the Fellowship of the Ring, the first film, had come out, and they had the trailer for Two Towers. And I was sitting in the theater watching something else, and we saw this trailer. It was me and my friend Justin and his wife, and we're watching it, and we're like looking, and we're like, they had that voiceover of Theoden. Mm-hmm. I was like, weird. They wrote something like just for the trailer. I was like, that's so strange. It was like, and Teresa's like, what do you mean? That's in the books. That's one of the songs. And we were like, what? Oh, we skipped the songs. I've read the book 5 times. I've never read the song.
Watched the cartoon growing up, the Hobbit cartoon.
The Hobbit cartoon, yes, but the Lord of the Rings one, I don't think I got through.
Well, that was that was a weird mix of live action and what do they call it?
Rotoscoping, I believe.
Rotoscoping, something like that.
It was also a notably tortured production.
Yeah, I mean, it was questionably good, but the cartoon, The Hobbit, had great music, and they brought back the same animation team for the Return of the King that they did a few years later. But
yes, I think I saw that and I liked that, but I didn't like the Lord of the Rings one.
But going back to The Hobbit, they really went out of their way with the music. And with this, I kept wanting to hear the music from the Hobbit cartoon, and was actually, I actually went and looked up some of it and was listening to it. Like when they did the whole, that's what, Bilbo Baggins hates, and they're singing about the plates and the cracking and all the plates and all the chipping of the, cups or whatever. It's that was like the only, I think, way that they could have added to this was to but I think they did a good job with it. I think he did a good job with kind of doing the songs sort of.
There were clearly limited resources, yes, but he winged it. He did as best he could with.
He did great,
with a budget.
Fine. It works. I was listening. It wasn't trying to come up with a melody or anything, but it was all right.
Many of those were abridged, so
yes.
I guess you can be thankful of that.
Also, probably a good choice.
Yes.
Because some of the songs are long. I just remembered I actually had a record of The Hobbit when I was a kid, but it was a record from the animated version.
Oh,
Yeah, there were those books where you turn a page, it would make a sound when it was time to turn the page in the book, kind of thing. I had one of those that was based on the animated version of The Hobbit. I liked that one a lot. That was pretty good.
so do we think we need to do a summary of The Hobbit itself, or is it just so well known that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? I mean, yes, probably it'd be like doing a summary of Romeo and Juliet. Like everybody knows what happens in it, I would imagine. But
Right.
and right there, I think that's kind of admitting that we're not going to be judging the classicity of The Hobbit, although I guess we could.
I think we have to be distinct in this. I
think so. Yeah, I think so. Because we did Raiders of the Lost Ark one time, and I was just like, why are we even asking if this is a classic? Like,
No, that's
two white guys from Generation X. Yes, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
We're going to, of course, find that.
Like, was not,
It's another fun thing about doing this in a different medium too, because you get to judge it in a different context.
Definitely. So you guys listen. Kevin, you said you listened 2 times.
Yes.
And Chris, it sounds like you've heard this multiple times over the course of your life.
Yes, it's something I have revisited.
I remember seeing a live play version of The Hobbit when I was a little kid at Rock Creek Park. There were like people doing a play of it, and I really liked it. I really remember the Gollum bit, like stuck with me very powerfully. And I already knew the story. I remember knowing what was going to happen in the story beforehand, but so I've seen this done. Clearly, we're talking about, I've read the book. I've read the book for myself. Then I've read it to all the children in my life over the years, from my brother to my oldest daughter to my little ones. I've seen multiple versions of the film, obviously. So this is a story that's being told in multiple different ways. So it's kind of what we're talking. It's not like Rashomon, but it's like you get a little bit different of a take on it from each medium. Do you guys know Nicol Williamson from anything else?
Chris, this was your find. Why don't you sell Nicol? Or
Nicol Williamson is probably most famous for his roles in Hamlet on stage. He also did a movie. I think he did a Macbeth with the aforementioned Helen Mirren, where the beef started, and then they reunited again in Excalibur, where he played Merlin and she was Morgan Le Fay. He had several other roles and had a Orson Welles-like finish to his career. You recall, famously, Orson Welles' last movie was Transformers the movie.
Yes. I believe Nicol Williamson's last movie was Spawn.
Yes.
He passed away.
Equally ignominious, if not more so, than the Transformers movie.
Yeah.
I feel like if we were going to do a Toasting the Classics episode on one of those, it would be Transformers, not one. So, one is marginally better than the other, I would imagine. But I don't know if that's what Orson Welles wanted for the end of his career, anyway. You guys have obviously seen Excalibur.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah. I've actually only seen that one time. I liked it quite a bit, but I was a kid when I saw it, and I haven't ever seen it since. But I did see Return to Oz a bunch of times, and Nicol Williamson is in that. Did you guys see that?
Yes. And he's done voices in several other things, too. That's a very distinctive voice.
What accent and what ethnicity was he doing for the goblins? They were definitely the only one that was not like a native English speaker.
Yeah, vaguely Germanic is about all I got.
Vaguely Germanic, sure. Yes. I think that's a good way to go about it, which is okay with me. It's if anybody would sound sort of foreign to the common tongue, it'd probably be goblins, right?
Well, yeah, certainly. Tolkien would probably want that voice to be. I just know
he lived through the World Wars. I don't think he was a big fan of the Germans. Yeah.
I didn't want to put words in Tolkien's mouth, but I would assume that if he did have a negative feeling towards any country in Europe, it would probably be German. But,
have you ever tried to graft the countries of World War I and World War II onto the various like tribes of creatures in Middle Earth?
I did it when I was younger. I did.
I was thinking about
not do that as I get older.
I was thinking about what a bad writing device it is for the Eagles to constantly show up and save people, like in both things, like in The Hobbit and in this. And I was like, maybe the Eagles are the Americans. They like swoop in out of nowhere and save them at the last minute, like without really getting involved in the story. And then I started thinking about like other ones. I was like, probably the elves or the French. You know, they're sort of beautiful and like unreliable and like and culturally alluring, you know, and stuff like that. But I would think that would kind of fit. And clearly, I think it's obvious the hobbits are the British, or at least the English, right? Because they have all these positive virtues that Tolkien imagined English people have. And then
so who are the Welsh and the Irish? And
I don't know.
Sailing to Numenor, sailing to the west would be coming to America, which I don't think of this place as heaven. But
no, sailing to the west is what people would say in the First World War when people died. They would say he's going to the west. And I'm pretty sure that's where Tolkien gets that from. It's like
interesting.
When the elves disappear into the west, it's just a phrase people said in the First World War. To me, it's kind of like how Americans started saying he bought the farm when he died. I think British soldiers would say he went into the west, which I guess that's where England is. So if they carry your body away to the west, but
having read Beowulf recently, did the Nordic storytelling tradition call out to you at all in this?
Yes, Beowulf is all over Tolkien. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Every time you read it, you can't miss it.
Very apparent.
And the more you go back to the actual text of Beowulf and read it, and I know Tolkien's history with translating Beowulf, it's that's hard to miss. But there's also those other Germanic myths that are in this.
Yes.
The ones I'm less familiar with, like Fafnir and Sigurd and those kinds of things. Like I don't know those stories as well, and like the stories of Wagner. That Wagner covered in the Ring cycle, clearly the Ring. Fafnir starts out as a dwarf that gets a whole bunch of gold, then sits on the gold and becomes so greedy and all, he turns into a dragon. And so that's definitely, we've got a metaphor for that here in The Hobbit.
Absolutely.
Right? It's really cool how this kind of brought back some older myths that were sort of killed by Christianity for Europeans. And I think Tolkien kind of brought it back to the fore.
Right.
I mean, down to the way even when Thorin presents himself to the Rivermen, it's not, hey, I'm Thorin. It's, I'm Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thor, king under the mountain.
Yes.
He's kind of full.
Very right.
I like the way Bilbo would hide who he was when he introduced himself to certain folks. Certainly like Smaug, where he talked around, like spoke in riddles, described himself, and actually it kind of led to the whole Smaug losing his stuff and going down to the...
This is talking about the plot of The Hobbit, but don't the people of Lake Town know that's going to happen if the dwarves go and mess with Smaug? If nobody's messed with Smaug for 60 years and he's been sleeping, why do they let the dwarves go up there? I wonder that every time I hear the story, because they go into town and they talk to the what's the guy who's in charge of the town called? He's like he's not the mayor. He's like the...
I think they call him the master of Lake Town.
The master of the... They go and they talk to him and he's like, oh yeah, go ahead, go mess with the dragon. And he's like, oh, maybe they'll find some gold. I'm like, wait a minute, what about the dragon itself? You're not worried about that? It's like,
I think he assumes that the dragon's just going to kill the dwarves and take care of his problem. He doesn't really care. He just wants to get them out of the town. And it was 60 years since anyone's messed with him, so the humans there don't really remember what it was like. And
that's true. There's some metaphors for some of our current problems. Remember. What's you guys' favorite parts of this story?
It's something that I didn't, because I haven't read it since college, and I forgot the whole Arkenstone little, I forgot that.
The Arkenstone, I didn't remember it until I saw the film, and I was like, was that in the book? And then I read it again, and I was like, oh, it totally was.
Yeah.
It just slipped my mind.
And hearing it now, it's like, Bilbo does kind of betray the Thorin. I mean,
but he's seeking to find a peace. I think it's pretty obvious when Gandalf supports him, whatever side Gandalf is on is always the right side, right? Gandalf is the voice of reason in these stories, always.
It's also telling Gandalf doesn't reveal himself until after Bilbo has made the choice and given the Arkenstone away.
Yeah, Gandalf plays a really strange role in these stories. He seems to kind of know what's happening at all times. Kind of knows that Bilbo's got a ring. He kind of figures out that he's got like this. He doesn't know it's a ring of power, obviously. Mm-hmm. The ring until Fellowship of the Ring, obviously.
Right.
But it seems like he knows. First of all, he knows how important it's going to be to get Bilbo involved in this story. That's why he chooses Bilbo. He almost sets in motion all these great events that bring about the end of the Third Age, almost like he's trying to make it happen.
Right.
But doesn't 100% know what's happening. Gandalf's a weird character. Very difficult to figure out.
He is, and contradictory. He's a magician who barely ever does any magic. I was just going to say the Arkenstone story is really cool because Thorin is built up through the whole story, and Bilbo does kind of betray him, and Thorin loses it and is probably about to throw Bilbo off the cliff, and has to be talked down, and it's interpersonal drama between them that's resolved only after the battle, and Thorin apologizes.
And also Bilbo sacrificing his share of the loot in order to bring about peace and not have all these guys fight each other is pretty, a pretty good character moment for him. It all gets sort of obviated by the arrival of goblins and wargs and things,
And Dane, yes.
And Dane, right. Are wargs and wolves one and the same or no?
I think wargs are, they have a language of their own in Tolkien, so they are distinct and different from wolves.
But in The Hobbit, and I noticed this, I don't think this is the case in the other Lord of the Rings things, at least not in the forefront, but all of the animals seem to have their own languages and be their own sort of Middle Earth races. Like ravens can talk and thrushes can talk and regular wolves can talk. So I was like, is that why the wargs can talk? Because in this book, all the animals can talk, or is it something?
Honestly, I'm not exactly sure. I guess my favorite portion of the book would be the character growth that Bilbo has through the adventure, because he starts out as a very, bookish, tentative individual, divvied along as he goes. And he doesn't really take off until Gandalf leaves. And at that point, all the dwarves start looking to him for solutions to every problem, which he does, maybe not as well as Gandalf does, but he starts making the right choices and being the leader and being the person in charge, which of course.
Did anybody else pick up on when he got the last couple of experience he needed for second level?
Yeah, explicitly when he killed the spider.
He kills the spider and levels up.
Quote unquote, felt like a different person. And he has rock throwing, and dragons cause fear, and dwarves are greedy, and I can't see where we're going with this, honestly, but feels like maybe there's some tropes that were carried forward.
Absolutely. That was another thing that I've always known the roots between, a lot of our geeky D&D stuff with Tolkien and the world, the Middle Earth and all of that. But there was just the animals speaking, and how, that they try to pull it in, especially with the earlier D&D stuff, where they're trying to bring it back in certain editions, where they have where gnomes can now speak with the animals and things
only burrowing animals. Yeah.
Yes, right. But, it's that was another thing that kind of hit home, was just, it felt like going home in a lot of ways. There was just a lot of, there was just a lot of hominess to it. There was just,
this really touched on something, and I think that's what it is. I think that these stories and these myths go pretty deep for Europeans, and I think that Tolkien touched on something very deep, and it's why we have video games and films and role-playing games and stuff that use all this material, because this was the stuff our ancestors talked about for thousands of years, and there was this couple 100-year gap, where they converted to Christianity, and so this stuff speaks to, it's going out into the mountains and fighting monsters and getting treasure is a pretty appealing story inherently, that's.
Looking kind of single-handedly, and he was one that was not a pulp culture type of person, he just kind of did his own thing, and then the rest of the world kind of, came to him as opposed
to. There are choices that he makes in his writing, and I've never read the Silmarillion, but this and this less so, but the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there are choices he's making where it's like what we said about Lovecraft, Chris. It's like, are you trying to have this be less dramatic? Are you trying to make this less appealing to people? Okay, we got this great big epic story. It's going to be, 1,400 pages long, and it's going to start out with 60 pages of detailed information about hobbits. And I'm like, as your editor, I'd like to say no. Maybe once you sell the book, you can come back and do an extended version where you talk about hobbits for 60 pages. But nobody's going to read that, and I would have been wrong. Although I don't think it sold well. Am I right? This was not these were not best-selling novels.
I believe it was a sleeper hit that really took off, but long after the years after the original publication date.
Yeah, that's the impression I got too. Yeah.
I think it was, the 60s where it kind of started coming back, was because it does have and something I really noticed with the Hobbit, through Bilbo's he's very anti-war, very anti, and that kind of, that really, look at all he did. We were just talking about how he worked so hard to stop this one battle, but it didn't matter. It still came. It still happened. It's just,
there's also something that I've noticed in a lot of books and things that got popular in the 60s and 70s is that the book it's very pastoral. It's like speaking to overly urbanized people, and there's all this stuff about the animals and the forest, and it's what today in fantasy is quite the opposite. Nobody wants to read rural setting fantasy. It's all urban. Like that's what people are craving, because you got a generation of people now that grew up in the suburbs and crave the city. And then you had a bunch of people grow up in the city and they crave the country. And it's just like, what do you, the grass is always greener, so you want to read fantasy. One day when suburbs are abolished, we'll have suburban fantasy.
It would make sense. I mean, Tolkien was seeing the results of industrialization,
right,
changing the countryside.
Right.
So this was written in response to that, kind of like The Great Gatsby was written in response to panic over automobiles.
Right.
So
yeah, well, Saruman, if you look at what Saruman's doing, it's pretty clearly, an anti-industrial message.
Yes, yes, very much so. Speaking of editing choices,
okay,
I have a feeling that if he had taken this to an editor, or if it had been made into a movie without having a book first, one of the first notes you'd get back is, "Do you really need 12 dwarves?"
Yeah. Oh my God.
that was
12. I was trying to count them on. I was like, wait a minute. I've read this book like 8 times. I was like, there's Thorin, there's Bomber is the fat one. There's Biffer, Bofer,
Keely,
Owen and Glowin, Nori, Dory, Ori. That's 12. That's 12 actually. Never mind. Actually, I do know them all. But
I thought
easy way.
Wasn't Bilbo the 14th, the one that?
Yeah, and then Gandalf is 13, and then the 14th.
Gandalf was 13. Okay.
Did any of the dwarves, other than Thorin, seem to have any particular characteristics to you guys?
Bomber is fat.
Bomber, yeah, well, that's a characteristic, sure.
And I never picked up on it until I saw the film and they did it. But Feely and Keely are very young and impetuous. Yes. I didn't really pick up on that from the books because it's not very strong. But when I went back and read it afterwards, I was like, oh yeah, they are. They're younger and more. They're
younger. They're direct nephews, I believe, of Thorin himself, which is why they specifically lay down their lives in defense of him at the end. Balin has some interesting personality traits that are kind of hidden in the text. He is the one who is keeping watch when Bilbo sneaks back with the ring. He's kind of upset when he takes it off later. It is later revealed that he takes pride in being the lookout himself, so that when he reveals the secret to the dwarves, he has this little moment like, oh, that's why. Got it.
Yeah, okay.
It's not all my fault.
My number one personality trait I know for Balin is dying in Moria.
That's true. And then
the number one personality trait for Glowin is being Gimli's father. So that's about it. It's really not a whole lot there. But
Here's to both of you.
So I was wondering this, and I thought about it a little bit just from a plotting perspective. Why does Thorin get captured separately from everyone else in the elf fortress? What purpose does that serve?
I think it's so that Bilbo can take more of a leadership role.
He single-handedly
he rescues all the dwarves by himself. He marshals their defense. He breaks them out from the spiders. He gets them to safety, and then they all sit down and rest. And then I think it's Balin who says, "Huh, where's Thorin?" And they all look around. They're like, "Oh, well, you don't know."
That makes sense because he sort of is in charge for that little bit. It gives him a little extra nudge towards being the leader. So the elves, that's a question. The elves are nothing like. Now, I know part of that is they're wood elves, so they're different. Correct. But there are wood elves in Lord of the Rings also, and they're not quite this.
Sort of. Legolas is a wood elf.
They're weird. The whole thing where they're weird. Well, there's Legolas, but he's not from Mirkwood. They meet the Mirkwood elves again also, though. They're creepy and spooky, but like they don't come across as very magical. Like once you get to their fortress in this one, they're just like regular people. They have guards that fall asleep and get drunk and stuff. Like they don't seem like
that. It struck me too that they were not otherworldly like the other elves are kind of.
Right.
When they meet. Name is escaping when
Galadriel?
Yes. Well, no. When
Galadriel is part of a different group of elves.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. There were distinctly different elves, and certainly whomever they met when they reviewed, like when they held it up to the moonlight and he was able to kind of, essentially unlock that.
Elrond,
That's Elrond. He's the one of the only characters that appears in everything, right? I mean,
yes,
who is ironically, I believe, a half elf.
Which I don't know where we ever learned it. I know that, but it's like I know the word Ewok, even though it's not used in the book. Like I don't know where I learned that Elrond.
I believe it is explicitly stated in the Silmarillion.
Okay. There's definitely some differences between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and one of them is that like this is just the pacing is so much better
in The Hobbit.
In The Hobbit, it's just one story and it just keeps moving.
Yes,
and everything is very low level. Right, like you don't.
Fellowship of the Ring has a good pace. Like
Fellowship of the Ring has a pretty good pace, but go back and read it again, and it doesn't.
Well, it doesn't have it as good as The Hobbit. That's something that stood out.
I think good. It's fun to read if you love it. Like once you're into it, it's a lot of fun to read. But it does not have. It's very slow. Like for somebody that's not already bought in.
I think it really picks up when they hit the Mines of Moria, and it doesn't slow down again until partway through the Two Towers.
I'm trying to remember whether they go to Galadriel before or after Moria, because that part's
after.
Slow. After, yeah, but no, it's true. I mean, it picks up again. I mean, it's a good book. I love it. I mean, I'm in the middle of reading it again. Alex and I are reading it together. So I mean, they're good books, but one of the things that I always liked, but this one's got a different pace. It's at a lower level, and they took all that when they made the films and just threw it out the window. They were hey, what if we made The Hobbit ponderously slow and we involved all these like epic level characters, bring back Saruman and all these wizards and stuff. And I'm like, why? Why don't you just skip that? That's just dragging the movie to the ground,
And an elven dwarven love story and over the top ridiculous CGI fight scenes, and
the Battle of Five Armies happens off camera.
Yeah. It's true. You don't see any of it. It's just this happened and you hear all about it afterwards.
Right.
To be fair, it's kind of limited in The Hobbit as well. Like, Bilbo gets knocked out and misses like the last half of the big fight and just,
right.
Don't see
that's the Battle of the Five Armies.
But yeah, The Hobbit, the movie, they made a lot of very poor decisions in that. And, the push to make it a trilogy was a big mistake. They should have made 2 films.
I'm not sure that was a big mistake. I think the way in which they filmed it and stretched it out, if you made it 3 90-minute cuts, I could totally see it.
Yeah.
But then why not do 2 movies?
So you do the first movie from the Shire to the wolves and the escape, maybe the meeting up with Bjorn. The second movie is all Mirkwood and reaching the mountain. And then the last movie is the dragon, the geopolitics, and the battle.
That sounds like to me what somebody who really loves this stuff would want to see. I think if you're trying to get I mean, a movie that is half about going through Mirkwood, frankly, I don't think would be a big seller for a lot of people. I mean, like we love Lord of the Rings, we're going to watch it, but I mean, I think it would. I think you could. Honestly, I think this could be 1 film, but you could do it in 2. I think you'd be better served to just try to turn it into one story. Just try to get the movie, as punchy as you could do it and make it cool and not turn it into such an epic. I don't think this one, it ends up being an epic because of the big battle at the end, but otherwise it's just sort of an adventure story about a small group of people.
Audio that we just, the audio, well, you really can't call it an audio book, but the audio performance, I guess, it had 4 distinct chapters. I think he did a good job of breaking it at good points and kind of, at least, I don't know if you all listen to it on YouTube, but like it clearly the record is that those breaks were good. And I think that Peter Jackson and crew just wanted to make this.
I think they were trying to do more of what they'd done in the Lord of the Rings films because that made money and was successful, and they were just trying to do it again. And really, this is kind of
a third movie millions, a bunches of millions. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it was just, it turned into a cash grab, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I get what they wanted to do too. They wanted to have, more of a female lead, which I get. They wanted to have, I don't know why they wanted the love arc, but, they could have introduced other characters without.
You're a woman in this story?
No. I think that's part of the reason why.
There's not a single woman in this book, right? I mean, I'm trying to think whether they
didn't have to do a love story though. Like they could have introduced a a woman character into it without it being,
You could have just made a couple of the dwarves female.
Right. Even that.
Who knows? They don't specify that they're not. I mean, they could have been.
Really don't.
Calling back to Terry Pratchett, that is a common joke that he has, where all the women dwarves have beards and nobody knows the difference between them except dwarves themselves.
And they make that joke in one of the Lord of the Rings movies. I think it's Fellowship.
Oh, really?
He sort of makes that canonical because he's like, I think Gimli says, you couldn't tell the difference between the male and female dwarves, and Aragorn's like, it's the beards. But I didn't realize that comes from Terry Pratchett, but that's kind of funny. That's like very circular. So I wanted to ask you this, Chris. What is happening during the main Lord of the Rings trilogy? What is happening in the region that this one is in, where the Lonely Mountain is, and Lake Town and Dale and everything? What are those people doing during the events of Lord of the Rings?
I believe in the appendices it says that they are defending against the might of Mordor itself as well, and they're just busy with other stuff.
And are they they're not part of Gondor, they're not part of Rohan, they're like their own thing?
Correct. Now, it's a fun, crazy question. This time, listening through, I tried to keep track of how many things were described as magical. So how many magical items / things do you think appeared in
the harps that they find in Smaug's lair?
That's on my list.
Are specifically referred to as magical. Obviously, Sting and Glamdring and whatnot, but they're just like
yes.
Are they referred to as magical, or are they just
they glow blue when there are orcs near?
No, they are. Yes. They clearly are magical, but I don't know. Are you saying, do they use the phrase "these are magical"? Because they specifically say.
How many things do you think in this are magical or are described as magical? So we got 4 so far.
It seems that the Arkenstone is.
Yes.
It seems
Arkenstone may be a Silmarillion. We don't actually know.
It seems that there's some kind of glamour on Bard's last arrow that belongs to his father and was forged.
Yes, he speaks to it like it's a thing.
The black arrows were up to 6.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, Smaug's got like a diamond coat. I don't know if that's magical per se.
I think that is more prosaic. It's just literally all the gems and stuff. There's the one ring.
Well, of course.
Right.
I would argue that Gandalf's staff is probably magical because the lightning comes out of that when he uses it to kill the Great Goblin. The magic doors to the Wood Elves' home.
The map itself, is magical.
That's true. I actually missed that. The one with the moonstones. There was one really bizarre magical thing that is left out of the audiobook.
The circle where the elves had their party is still magical after they left. It protects the dwarves when they come back to it.
Yeah, when they step across it, they fall into a deep slumber.
Right. It's like a Liamon's tiny hut or something like that.
You remember when Bilbo steals the wallet from the lead ogre? The 3 ogres that are arguing between themselves, and Bilbo tries to sneak in and he tries to steal the wallet and gets caught.
Yeah.
So in the book, the wallet itself is magical and says something like, "Hey, who are you?"
Oh, okay.
And I think it was abridged out of the audiobook because Nicol probably didn't want to try to come up with a voice for a wallet that gets used all the
time. Yeah.
I love that whole interaction too, the way
that's fun.
Yeah, in that whole scene where he tricks them, he was actually using their voices as Gandalf, messing with them as Gandalf was mimicking their voices, which it was just, that was actually really brilliant sound play.
Are those ogres or are those trolls? Those are trolls.
Oh, trolls, yes.
Those were trolls. Yeah. You're right.
Dungeons and Dragons version, that's an ogre, right? That's about the size of an ogre. They're really nothing. A troll's more like a monster in the second one. I mean, in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, the cave troll. Yeah.
Oh, I guess a cave troll. See, cave troll probably is to troll as goblin is to orc. More subterranean, more animalistic, maybe. No, the goblins are perfectly intelligent. Maybe even more so than the orcs. Because like when they're talking to the Goblin King and stuff like that, he seems like a character. He was,
Yeah, well, he has beef specifically with Thorin, the whole bodyguard of Bolg thing, and I think that was excised out of this too, where Bolg was the leader of the army that came to fight the dwarves. And
so, what is an Ottercap?
Ettercap.
It's Ettercap in D&D, but he calls the spider an Ottercap. It's like spelled different. Is that some old word for spider or something? What is that?
I think it must be. I'm not sure.
I meant to look it up because I thought that was really interesting, and I was hoping you guys had done so. But We were all equally lazy. We haven't talked about Gollum much. Gollum, I think, is one of the great characters. I think just not so much in this one. He's okay in this one, but in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I think he's just such a tragic and fascinating character. He's got this long life, and he's like at the center of everything. I think he's just a terrific character. And
he really comes into his own in the Two Towers when you find out his background and how he's tortured about finding the ring and all the links he goes through. Yeah.
I think he's sort of the center of that book. I think he's probably the most interesting thing about that second book. But the part where Bilbo meets him used to scare me really bad when I was a little kid. Just the idea of how deep underground that lake must be, and like Bilbo wandering around under there in the dark. And like, how long was Gollum there? Right. I used to always think about that. Like, how long was it? 1,000 years? Was it 100 years? I feel like Gollum could have been underground for anywhere from 10 to 1,000 years. And
I have to feel like it's on the longer end of that because of how hobbits were described and how he was, but wasn't really like the hobbits that are around now, and the physical changes in him.
Didn't you take a class on Lord of the Rings in college, like a actual like interpretive literature course on Lord of the Rings? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Weirdly, no. I had a conflict and couldn't take it that semester.
Oh, I would have. That seems to me like, I never got to take the Alexander the Great course that my college offered, and was specifically for credit for my degree.
Oh, no.
It never came up. I never got to take it while I was there. I was like, oh, that's like right up my alley. It's like, but anyway.
It's funny. My roommate was taking it. And it was like, I didn't do my reading. What happened? Okay, you lazy bum. This is what happened.
That's pretty fun. I got a text message, very similar. I got a text message the other night from my friend Justin. He said, quick, which planet of the Hoth system was the rebel base on? And I was like, the 6th. And then I was like, why? And he didn't respond. I'm like, why?
I must know.
I never got to find out why he didn't get that information. It was just like,
no, everyone's in suspense. You'll have to update us next time.
Kind of going back to what we're talking about, just how this is just a full arc. It's just like, really tight arc. The way it ends is so beautiful. It's perfect. The way, Tolkien just really knew how to end this. I think he ended the books far better than they ended the movies of the Fellowship of the Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, right.
But it's like there's
Do you really think the Scouring of the Shire was a great ending to the Lord of the Rings?
Well, I think that's a really smart end, because the hobbits return home. It's very similar to Bilbo's evolution.
Right.
They were, tentative and afraid at the beginning. They come back knowing what the hell they're doing, organizing the defense of their home, and just pulling it off without any help from anyone else. So,
I like it. But just if I was an editor, I'd be like, listen, there's rising action, climax, falling action, end your book. Like, do not start another plot at the end of the book. Like, this is not what you do. But
and also remember, Lord of the Rings, I think, was written as an 8. Was it 8 or 9 books? I think it was 8 that were split into 3.
There's 2 per book, so 6.
I think it's 3, 3, and 2, right?
Not the way it's done now. The pagination now is just book 1, book 2, book 3.
Okay, then I could be way off. Sorry.
I'm in the middle of reading it again, so
that's cool.
We're just coming to the end of Two Towers right now.
I remember being a little kid and my dad reading Lord of the Rings to me. I think I was in 7th grade, and he would read a chapter a night, and I would get impatient, and I would sneak back after before he got home from work and start reading ahead on Lord of the Rings. So I had
what's funny is, as a dad, I can tell you thought you were putting one over on your dad, but your dad was like, that's such a win that my son is being bad by reading ahead in this giant novel. It's like,
oh no. And he caught me doing it. And I was like, well, I still want you. I want to hear you talk. I want to hear you read it. I don't want to.
I've had this conversation with multiple different kids where they were like, sort of being slow about learning to read. And I was like, what are you doing? You love reading. Like, why don't you want to work on this with me? And both Alex and Cleo, both individually, were like, I'm afraid when I learn to read, you'll stop reading to me at night. And I was like, if you want me to lay down in your bed when you're 16 and read to you, I'll do it. You're not going to want that, but I would. I'm always going to want to read to you.
That's something that struck me as The Hobbit, though, too. And I think, it came through in the audio, is that it's meant to be read by parents, maybe not by parents, but by someone to someone else. It really felt like this, certainly more than the other books, because they're just so long and complex and
Right.
and all this.
Right.
There is a simplicity. I think this was written more as a children's book in a way that
It's also directly inspired much more by Beowulf, right?
And the oral tradition.
Beowulf was not a book that you read by yourself. It was you sat around a fire in the Great Hall and you sang Beowulf.
Right. Yes.
That's the way these things were meant to be done. They didn't have movies. They didn't have TV. What they had was a guy who was good at singing a story. And if he forgot the line, everybody would pick it up because they knew it. It's just like Homer and there's all this stuff. It's all very similar. So
to bring it full circle, it is ideally suited for an audiobook, eh?
It is. I think it is. But it would be really cool. It's like going. I think the way they did these things in the old days, it was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think everybody was like listening and participating and like shouting parts of the dialogue and stuff. Like, maybe somebody would be like a really good bard and everybody would just sit enthralled while they did it, but somebody else wouldn't be so great at it and everybody would do it together. And I just imagine lots of ale and lots of singing and yelling, and if the guy sucked, you'd throw some beer at his head or something. I don't know. That's just my image of an Anglo-Saxon, great hall, like with a roaring fire and just a big party. And I don't know. It sounds awesome to me.
So listening to it this time, did you guys think that Bard the Bowman was a little bit of a drama queen? You're like, okay, where's Bard? Yeah, we'd make him king, and he like steps out of the shadows. I live.
That was definitely absolutely. So I wondered about this. That brings up another thought. I wanted to see what you guys thought of this, tactically speaking. Why? It's a Bard. The first thing he does, he runs over and he closes the bridge. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. And then Smaug shows up, and Smaug's like, "Oh man, the bridge!" And I'm like, "Dude, you can fly. What do you care if there's a bridge?" Does anybody understand that? What's going on?
I didn't quite. The only thing I could come up with on that, because that did strike me, was that he didn't want them to leave. He wanted to incinerate that town with all of them in it and just light them to the ground. So, and that was just a way they could escape and get away.
If the bridge was not down, they could escape.
But yeah, he knocked it down. You're right, actually. Yeah,
the dragon doesn't leap across a bridge.
He knocked it down first, and that was like, yay. That was so smart. He knocked it down. You're right. That is.
And then I'm like, because I was thinking, well, Smaug's just going to fly over that, but then he shows up and he's like, rats. They've got the bridge up. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what?
Well, if you think about how Smaug operated in the Lonely Mountain, he smote the scythe and then like went in and ate all the dwarves. So that was probably his plan, was to like land and go in and eat them all. But with the bridge down, he was forced to strafe, and they had arrow shots at him, and one of them actually did take him out. So
one of them did kill him, but he thought he was invulnerable to anti-aircraft fire, essentially. So we always ask this as we get towards the end of the show. What were you guys' biggest surprises? I guess first question: were there any surprises? And to me, this mostly was like entirely a surprise. I've never listened to this before. I thought it was very cool. It's surprising to me that it was abridged. I didn't know that. The voices were all great, and that was a welcome surprise. But was there anything that I didn't expect in this? Not really. This is pretty much what I thought I was getting. I know the story. I recently reread the book to my kids within the last year or so. I didn't remember the whole bit after they get the treasure and where the good guys are all about to kill each other, and the Arkenstone and all that. I completely forgot about that.
That was
section of the tale. That wasn't a surprise on this reading, but my last reading, I was like, oh, I didn't remember any of that. Like, completely slipped my mind. So how about you guys? Anything surprise you?
Yeah, you got my surprise, which was the Arkenstone bit. I don't know why that slipped my mind, and it added this really great level of depth that just just kind of brought that whole thing home for Bilbo. That arc that you were talking about, Chris. Just where he has that is really his shining, growing moment. Where he makes this decision of giving up his gold, trying to avoid a battle that unfortunately, didn't totally avoid it, but he did avoid the conflict with, on the good side, I'm using air quotes, but that was my surprise, which is how that slipped through the cracks to my memory. And
sorry, I jacked your surprise. No,
no, it's okay.
You know what's another thing, actually, on my most recent reading of it, I had missed how explicitly when Gandalf leaves them, he's going off to fight the necromancer.
Yep.
Who's like Sauron.
Yes.
I totally missed until the most recent reading of it. Not this time, but the last time. And I think they cut that from this. I don't think that gets mentioned in the audiobook.
I don't know if it was mentioned in the Hobbit at all. At least I don't remember.
No, I don't. To me, it's sort of, Gandalf disappears. He disappears because essentially, like Chris said, you want to give Bilbo some agency. So you take away Gandalf. It's kind of like how Captain Marvel can't be there every time the Avengers have a fight, because if Captain Marvel's there, she just ends the fight. She's too powerful.
It's the Superman problem.
Right. Superman problem. Exactly. So, Chris, did anything surprise you?
Yeah, two things, actually. And one's really small. It's when Bilbo is being challenged by the dwarves on whether he'll take it up. And he says something like, yeah, I'll do anything. I'll fight the wild werewolves in the last desert. And I was like, yeah, I want to see that. Wild werewolves? Yeah, sign me up. And the other thing is language drift. It's really apparent when you listen to this book.
Queer? Are you talking about the use of the word queer?
Queer is a big one. Yes, yeah. It means strange or unusual exclusively.
Right. Gay is another one that comes up.
Gay comes up. There is.
Do we have any bundles of sticks explicitly?
I was listening for that, and no. I think that is in the text of Lord of the Rings, though, yes, and that can be very confusing. The Wood Elves describe the dwarves as wandering around their lands molesting people. Elrond's home is described as the last homely house in the west. Homely house in the east. I'm sorry. Yeah. Just homely is
ugly.
Yeah, it just doesn't mean the same thing as it did in 1950 or
it's not like you wouldn't say like, oh, your house is really homely. Like,
right. People would be very offended. So it just language has changed over time, and it's funny to see that.
We've come down to it. What are you guys going to do? Are we going to raise our glasses? What do you guys think of this audiobook?
We have two votes here. Do we toast the Hobbit by itself and then the audiobook version of said Hobbit? Or
if we're going to do that, then I think for me, clearly, I think the Hobbit is a classic. I think this is rejuvenating the old tales of fantasy, and it's what a prequel should be. It's its own. I know it's not technically. Well, it is you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like a prequel.
It's its own thing. It's also
when you do a prequel, there's no reason why it can't stand on its own and be like a thrilling tale of its own. It doesn't have to be boring backstory. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular who might have screwed that up, but I just think this is a great story. It's fun. Kids love it. Adults love it. I think the book is a classic.
100% in agreement on the book being a classic.
All right. So how about the audiobook? What do you guys think? Would you guys play this audiobook? Would you guys look for something better?
For me, like I was on the fence, in terms of it, because it is a derivative of a classic. So it's classic in and of itself. And just looking at all the work that went into coming up with the voices and being able to, create that world, just auditorially, I think it, to kind of like steal a line from the very ending of that, you leave transformed, you leave as a listener, you leave not as you once were. You are transformed by the audio experience. I think it does take you somewhere.
Well, that's a powerful vote in favor of it. Definitely. I think if you were comparing this to audiobooks, I listen to Audible a lot, listen to a lot of audiobooks. This would stand head and shoulders above the quality of any of those. It's just not the way they're done. This is more like what they usually call like a radio drama. Like the way there's like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy version, and there's like a Star Wars version that they've done that were sort of more inspired by the old radio dramas than they were just audiobooks. And this is kind of in a nether region between those two things. And if you compare it to the radio dramas, it would probably, have a little bit more of a run for its money. But if you compare it to audiobooks, this is phenomenal, much better than anything you're going to listen to as an audiobook. I have listened to Lord of the Rings on audiobook, like the full trilogy. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty good. I remember pretty good versions that I listened to, but this was better. Like you said, it stands out. I don't have trouble following which characters are which would be great for Lord of the Rings because there's a whole bunch of people. And, I've listened to Tolstoy on audiobooks, and it would have been awesome if somebody had done different accents for all these Russians that I have no idea who was who. And versus the audiobook canon, this would be like something I would say. Do you like audiobooks? Oh, you never listened to audiobooks. Here's a great one of The Hobbit that you should listen to. It would be like an entryway to like the genre of listening to audiobooks. And to me, that means it's a classic of the genre. So I vote for it.
I don't need to feel like I need to make a case at this point. It's obviously something I like a lot, and I come back to it every few years. And
but sometimes I have nominated some things that I really liked at younger points in my life, and then they don't hold up. So it's worth mentioning if it held up for you or not. You know,
I will say honestly, it does bother me a bit that it is abridged. But I am the type of person who does want 3 full decent movies of The Hobbit. Right. You know, I do miss that we don't get the Bilbo poetry when he comes back home. You know, the hero's journey end cap, how he's a different person than when he left. Him coming back to find the Sackville Bagginses have put up his home for auction.
Yes.
Right.
You know, it's so good. Even the fact that approximately the first 70 or 80% of the book is spent traveling all the way to this mountain, and then like the last 4 pages of the book are him getting back home, and basically nothing happens. That's funny. So there are little things that I think the totality of The Hobbit is not captured in this, but there's a lot of heart that goes into it, and I think it's a good listen, and I heartily vote for it. And anyone can find this on YouTube under Nicol Williamson Hobbit audiobook.
Nicol Williamson Hobbit's available on YouTube in 4 parts. Don't be distracted by the Nicol Williamson version. It's like what you're saying about not capturing the totality of The Hobbit, but still being, that's what I think the film should have felt like. I think
that's the essence of it. Yes.
It should have captured the essence of it. It should have been a thrilling tale and maybe left out some stuff. Right. I think we all noticed when Tom Bombadil wasn't in Fellowship of the Ring, but I think we were okay. Yes. I think we were okay without Tom Bombadil. Nice. Kevin, thanks for coming on the show. Kevin Doyle, first time guest host. Thanks for coming on. Chris, thanks for coming back.
Always a pleasure.
Veteran of the infamous and highly regarded episode on the Terry Pratchett book that we read. So thanks for coming on again. And for Toasting the Classics, this is Dave McArthur. See y'all later. That's it for episode 55 of Toasting the Classics. For those playing along at home, get some hot chocolate, vanilla extract, and any rum of your choosing to make a spiked hot chocolate for our discussion of Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. If you'd like to get in touch, please send us an email at toastingtheclassics@gmail.com. Send us show ideas, comments, complaints, and let us know what regional British accents we should use for next week's show. Check out my blog at theattractivenuisance.com and follow us on Twitter at @ractivenuisance. Our music was written by Michelle McArthur. See you next time on Toasting the Classics.